Okay, good evening and welcome. I now call the October 20th, 2021 board meeting of the Lane Community College Board of Education to order. In order to continue conducting meetings in a manner that will help to combat the spread of COVID-19 and promote the safety and well-being of our community, this meeting is being held remotely. I'd like to remind board members and staff to keep themselves muted and to use the hand raise feature when you would like to speak. Board members are also asked to have their video turned on so you are visible to the viewing public. Though I would like to note that tonight board member Austin Fulnegi will have his camera off for the night because of some technical issues at home. I'd also like to recognize that tonight is International Pronouns Day. In the last year or so, the LCC board has started a practice of making our pronouns visible in Zoom. So I'd like to invite others to consider doing that tonight if you haven't done so already. I also learned today through an informational letter that the ODE sent out that it is not inclusive to say preferred pronouns. And that is a practice that I myself have done. And that it's not inclusive because pronouns are a significant part of who a person is and not just a preference. An example of a preference is an ice cream flavor. So I'm going to work to correct that for myself personally. My pronouns are she, they. Donna, could you go ahead and take the roll call for us this evening?
Sure. Holly Johnson.
Present.
Angela Van Kraus.
Present.
Mike Eister.
Here.
Austin Fulnegi.
Here.
Steve Mattel.
Here.
Rosie Pryor.
Here.
Lisa Fragola.
Present. Thank you. So this evening for the acknowledgement of homeland, we have a member of the LCCEA, Sibel Higgins, and Sibel is actually going to read to us and a land recognition statement that is the LCC Education Association's own land recognition. So it is a little bit different than the one that we typically have, but I'm excited for them to read that tonight. Is Sibel here?
Hello.
Hi, Sibel.
Should I go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, Sibel Higgins, she, her, hers. We acknowledge that the land on which Lane Community College is built is the traditional land of the Kalapuya people. I ask you to join me in acknowledging Indigenous communities, their elders, both past and present, as well as future generations. We also acknowledge that our institutions were founded upon genocide, erasures, and exclusions of many Indigenous peoples, including those on whose land our institutions are located. Our institutions must acknowledge and make visible the ongoing effects of systemic oppression and intergenerational trauma that affects all of us. This acknowledgement demonstrates a commitment to beginning the process of working to dismantle the ongoing legacies of settler colonialism and begin a process of restorative justice. And my personal reflection, I have lots of reflections, but every day I look out in my backyard and there's camas growing there. And I think of all the people who cannot harvest now because things have become private property. And I think about that every day. And I'd like everybody to take a moment to reflect on what this means to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Sibel. Okay, so I am going to adopt the agenda with flexibility. If there is no objection, I'd like to go ahead and adopt the agenda with flexibility. Is there any objection? All right, we have adopted the agenda with flexibility. I am going to go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Hamilton for the president's report.
Thank you, Chair Fragola. And I'm Marge Hamilton. My pronouns are she, her, hers. Welcome, everybody, to the October 2021 Board of Education meeting. I'd like to start my report expressing my ongoing appreciation to everybody at the college who's continuing to go above and beyond during these very difficult and challenging times. So many people have added so many hours of extra meetings to their week to deal with all the priorities and the challenges because of the pandemic. I've asked everybody for patience and grace with each other as we all continue to address the challenges. Those of us that did attend the trauma-informed care lecture were reminded that under stress, people are comforted by structure and some sense of control during a crisis. So we're going to continue to create and communicate better guidance for a clearer path to a safer campus for our students and our employees. Today is Lane's birthday. Please join me in wishing everybody here at the college a very happy birthday. Lane was founded by a countywide vote 56 years ago on October 19, 1964. The college continues to be an economic driver while transforming the lives of our students. Today is also, as you heard, also International Personal Pronouns Day, which seeks to make respecting, sharing, and educating people about personal pronouns commonplace. We encourage everyone to spend time discussing the importance of using one's pronouns. Lane's Native American program and the Longhouse created the first virtual Indigenous Peoples Day celebration on October 12th. Special thanks to our Native American Student Association, our Native American Student Program Coordinator, Lori Tapahanzo, our local Indigenous community, and KLCC reporter, Brian Bull, for covering the event. Fall term began on September 29th. The college experienced a 10.7% drop in enrollment. Someone had asked me, is this typical? We're about in the middle, some a little less, some a little more. Student Affairs will continue to conduct outreach to our students and encourage them to return. That last week in September, though, we also held an in-service event and lots of meetings that week to kick off the new academic year. In addition to speakers, workshops, participants heard an update on our upcoming accreditation site visit and priorities for the year. Special congratulations to Dean Corey Miner and the faculty on a successful accreditation of our EMT paramedic program. Accreditation is what makes us accountable to our students and to the public. And congratulations, of course, again to our multimedia students and faculty, Tom Madison, on making the finals for the Pacemaker Award and the Medallion Award. Year after year, they continue to win awards. So we included a list of links in your packet today for press releases and news featuring our college. Many thanks to Brett Roulette for keeping Lane in the news in the community. And finally, our NUQ site visitors will be here Monday through Wednesday next week. Zoom invites have been sent out to everybody participating in the virtual meetings. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Hamilton. I'm going to move on to statements from the audience. Board policy BP 320 states that the board will not respond directly to issues raised by the audience, but will refer those issues to the president for appropriate action. We do greatly appreciate attendees' participation in tonight's LCC board meeting and the willingness of stakeholders to address the board. Let me see who I have first up to speak. Okay, so if you do want to participate in public comment, you can go to the Board of Education website and follow the link to sign up. And when you are in the queue, you'll enter the board meeting as an attendee, but will be moved over to the meeting as a participant when it is your turn to speak. The meeting host will unmute your speaker, and you may also start your video if you choose. So there is a little delay there as you get shuffled over. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes. That is allotted to each speaker. And I see that the first person that I have on the list tonight is Lori Tapahanzo, LCC faculty and Native American Student Association coordinator. Welcome, Lori.
Hi, thank you. Yep, can you see me? Okay.
Great.
Lori Tapahansa Yanishia. I'm here as faculty, Native American Student Program Coordinator, and member of the Committee on Racial Equity and Social Justice. And I'd like to share a statement to the Board of Education on curriculum and learning and working conditions for a more just campus. The LCCEA Committee on Racial Equity and Social Justice Committee expresses unwavering support for the following: faculty academic freedom rights, the role, responsibility, and the right to teach diverse, comprehensive, culturally accurate history and narratives, including critical race theory and restorative justice concepts, and curriculum that promotes understanding of the experiences and needs of marginalized communities, as well as systems of oppression with the goal of advancing social justice and equity. As such, the committee calls for the following. In curriculum and academics, the college will support and fund curriculum development that reflects the needs of marginalized communities, promotes equity and inclusion, and understanding of systemic oppression. The employer and union will regularly review compliance. The college will actively promote and market courses with curriculum that includes critical race theory and cultural competence, and/or addresses the needs and experiences of marginalized communities. The college will actively promote and market expanded English language learning offerings at community locations and offerings at locations that best serve marginalized populations. The college will provide tuition waivers for undocumented and/or Indigenous students. The college will preserve and amply fund academic programs that serve relatively high numbers of students from ethnic minority groups. The college will increase textbook affordability through providing funding to faculty for OER development, adaptation, and adoption, and negotiated reduced markup on textbook and course material at the campus bookstore. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Lori. And I believe next we have Sibel Higgins, LCC ESL faculty. Welcome, Sibel.
Okay, here I am.
Great.
I'm continuing. I'm on the Committee for Racial Equity as well, and continuing where Lori Tapahonso left off. And I'm going to be focusing on staffing and resources. So the college will contract with a third party to conduct an independent, comprehensive annual survey of employee morale, including a report on working conditions affecting faculty from statistically marginalized and ethnic minority backgrounds. Results will be reported in full to the Board of Education. The college will conduct exit interviews of all separated LGBTQI and Black, Indigenous, and people of color, BIPOC employees. The employer will provide the union the opportunity to conduct their own exit interview prior to the employee's last day of work. The college will ensure appropriate full-time, part-time staffing ratios in departments that serve greater percentages of LGBTQI and BIPOC students and marginalized populations. The Multicultural Center, ESL, ABSC, GE, and GEC, maybe GED. The college will ensure ample LGBTQI and BIPOC staffing and programs that historically lack sufficient diversity among faculty, staff, and management. The college will ensure an equitable distribution of resources, equipment, classrooms, and physical space for departments serving LGBTQI and underrepresented ethnic minority students. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sibel. Up next, we have Susie Kauser from the LCC Health and PE faculty. Welcome, Susie.
Hi, all. Can you hear me?
We can, yes.
Great. Hi, I'm Susie. I am the third part of the Racial Equity and Justice Committee, and I'm going to be talking about other equity and justice goals. The first one is the college will provide sufficient staffing and funding for the food pantry on campus with expanded hours, as well as access for students, faculty, and classified employees in order to address food insecurity. The college will address housing insecurity by dedicating an adequate number of apartments with subsidized rent at Titan Court to low-income students, faculty, and classified employees. The college will track student discipline and campus public safety reports by race, ethnicity, and gender to provide an annual report to the Board of Education. The college will ensure campus safety remains unarmed. The college will keep ICE off campus and enhance sanctuary campus status. The college will ensure that responses to mental health emergencies call appropriate social services. Examples would be CAHOOTS, not the Lane County Sheriff's Department. The college will make Election Day a holiday. The college will make the last day to register to vote a paid non-instructional work day to facilitate voter registration, and a teach-in on civic engagement, including voting rights, with activities to take place at multiple locations in the community, including all LCC campuses. The college will eliminate low-wage work on campus by providing a minimum standard for all, example, outsourced workers, student workers. The college will only contract with socially responsible businesses that pay a minimum of $15 per hour and provide sick days, and will prioritize women and minority-owned businesses. The college will adopt a campus plan that addresses climate change, adaptation, and resilience, recognizing that disparate impact on BIPOC and economically marginalized populations, and the need for environmental safety and justice. And I want to end by saying thank you for your time, and I am she, her, hers.
Thank you. And the last person that I have signed up for this evening is Rachel Kidd. Is Rachel here? I'm going to move her over. I see her in the attendees. Welcome, Rachel.
Here I am.
Welcome.
Let me get my text. Okay, Slahayam, Rachel Kidnai Yachel, Chinook Indian Nation Naga, Dret Nagatigi Chagu Kanomax Kabam Saiga Hayumasi. Hi, my name is Rachel Kidd. I'm a Chinook Indian Nation tribal member. Thanks for the opportunity to address the board. I have been a Chinook Wawa language learner for over 4 years. My children are as well. My mother has been involved with Chinook Wawa for about 20 years. I'm going to give you a definition of Chinook Wawa. It's the original universal language of the Pacific Northwest, spoken in intertribal settings and multilingual homes from Southeast Alaska to Northern California, including Western Oregon, and it's being taught as a heritage language of the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde. I'm a member of the American Indian Languages Program Committee here at LCC. We're the committee which supports the success of the Chinook Wawa program, and we wish to update the board about our recent growth and health. Sorry for the ding dong. The Chinook Wawa program at LCC came about as a partnership with the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde and was really a cause for celebration. This relationship continues to be important to both parties. The Chinook Wawa language program at Grand Ronde, which has lots of different kinds of classes for various age groups, including an immersion preschool, and the program here at LCC work together closely. One example of this is a close working relationship between our LCC Chinook Wawa teacher, Beth Shepard, and the teacher of the Chinook Wawa College Now class at Willamina High School, the school nearest the Grand Ronde community. Chinook Wawa is also important regionally. Over the years, there has been a constant request for Chinook Wawa as an online course. And when the pandemic forced this into action, people have thronged to the class from all over the West Coast. And even from far away, we have one student right now who works in the Natural History Museum in New York City, and another who is an archaeologist working at Willapa Bay, Washington, a regional center of Chinook life. Our current student numbers are very strong, with a long waiting list of people who could not get in this year. We have been lucky to have Beth Shepard as teacher, who is very adept at reworking Chinook Wawa into an online course. In the LCC course, we now have 13 students from Grand Ronde, either tribal members or descendants, and 10 students from Chinook Indian Nation, and 6 students from other regional tribes, including Siletz and Klamath, in addition to a wide variety of other people with interests in history and all kinds of personal reasons for taking the class, and that's very fitting considering the history of Chinook Wawa. We also count 23 students in the College Now program at Willamina High School. That teacher, Zoe Holzclaw, Grand Ronde tribal member, also teaches 14 middle school students who all serve to strengthen the Chinook Wawa program regionally and at Grand Ronde. The presence of Chinook Wawa at the college is a touchstone for students' well-being, for student well-being for students of color and of various cultural identities. The Alaska Native and American Indian Student Success Act and the Senate Bill Tribal 13 here in Oregon, which created the Tribal History Shared History curriculum for K through 12, really asks for these kinds of programs for well-being for Indigenous students, for student success from preschool through college. This course, the Chinook Wawa course at LCC, provides cultural awareness for students of any background about the Indigenous peoples of Oregon and Southwest Washington, including the language, cultural practices, literature, including origin stories of this place. So I've been rushing. Chinook Wawa at LCC is healthy and growing, and we are just popping in to say L'chaim to the Board of Education. Here's what's going on with us. Hayumasi, many thanks for including me in this gathering.
Thank you for that update, Rachel.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the last person that I have in the Google Doc queue. Deborah, were there any late additions?
Nope, that's all we have on the list.
Okay, great. Thank you. So let's move on. Thank you to everybody who took the time to speak with us this evening. Let's move on to our consent agenda. Is there any item that a member of the board would like to pull from the consent agenda?
Move approval.
Okay, I have move approval from Rosie Pryor. Do I have
I'll
a second?
second.
Great, seconded by Steve Mattel. So is there any conversation about that? Seeing none, I will go ahead and ask Donna to call the roll for approving the consent agenda.
Holly Johnson,
Yes.
Angela Van Kraus.
Aye.
Mike Eister,
Aye.
Austin Folnegi,
Aye.
Steve Mattel,
Yes.
Rosie Pryor,
Aye.
Lisa Fragola.
Yes, we have approved the consent agenda. Thank you. So our first action item tonight, our only action item, is the presidential profile. And so we spent nearly 4 hours, not quite, but about 4 hours with the advisory committee to the board for the presidential search. And, first of all, I want to start out by thanking that committee. It's a great committee. I feel very fortunate to get to work with them. They provided us with a lot of great thinking, a lot of great feedback, and they all are very engaged and very excited to be supporting this process. The profile that we have to look at tonight reflects that feedback, and I'm hoping we can look at it together, see where we might want to make some adjustments while still honoring the work that has gone into the profile that we have tonight. It reflects the feedback not just of the committee, but also of the entire public feedback process. So we have Jill Wakefield, our consultant, here with us tonight, and she is going to work with us and support us in going through this. I do want to just talk a little bit about the process first. We're going to go through it section by section. After Jill gets us started, I'm going to ask Deborah to show the document on the screen so that we have it in front of us. We are going to use straw polls if there are any changes that we want to make, and Deborah will make those in a different color so it is very clear what we're changing. And at the end, we'll approve this to move us forward in the process. So Jill, did you want to get us started?
Yes, thank you, Chair Fragala. Much has happened over the past month in preparation for our successful presidential search. I'm feeling very positive about the process, and we're meeting our deadlines. There has been a lot of work. I want to acknowledge Deborah Butler and Tammy Hill, the great support and leadership that they have provided. And I know they had many other things to do, but they've made this a priority and have done an excellent job. So it's been a real pleasure to work with your chair, as well as Deborah and Lisa. It's an exciting time for LCC, its students, employees, and communities, an exciting time for your president as she enters a new phase of her adventure in life. So it's a good time right now. And over the past few weeks, the board has been busy. You appointed the search committee. You asked the college to schedule open forums with students, employees, and community members, requested input from 600 business and community leaders, and posted a survey from anyone who wanted to provide their thoughts about the college and its next president. We received input from 220 surveys, and about 150 more participated in some way through the forums or in other ways. So really, there's been a lot of interest in the next president, and that people really were interested in sharing their thoughts about the challenges, opportunities facing the college and the community, and their ideas about preferred characteristics of the next president. The good news is there were many common themes. The search committee met last week and completed its first responsibility, drafting a presidential profile for your consideration this evening. I'm very impressed with the search committee, its commitment to the college and willingness of members to dedicate significant time to assisting with the search. They've done an excellent job. My recommendation for you as we start through the process, as we start to review, is that you trust the process that you've developed and the great work of the committee. And perhaps instead of focusing on details and editing, look at from a presidential profile from a little broader perspective. Does it really capture the college strengths and challenges? And have we identified the characteristics that you believe your new president should have? Also, let's make sure that we're not overwhelming our candidates or creating a standard that few can meet. You know, the purpose of the presidential profile, there are many, but one is to excite potential candidates about Lane Community College, about the community and the opportunity to lead, as well as to provide enough information that those candidates see a real alignment between their passion and strengths and those of the college. The candidates will be looking for a place where they really enjoy living, enjoy working, a place where their families will be happy, where the community supports the college, where the board is supportive of the president. Some will be looking for their first presidency, others will be looking to move to a larger college, or even to the Northwest, which is quite popular right now. And also with COVID, we're finding that many want to are moving closer to their families. So my task was to write the first draft from the feedback that I received from our up to 400 people and present it to the Search Advisory Committee at its meeting last week. The committee spent, as your chair noted, considerable amount of time reviewing the profile line by line. Members had a number of excellent suggestions that to more accurately reflect the community, the college, and desired qualifications. Those have been incorporated into the draft that you're reviewing. Generally, there was agreement about the edits. However, there's a couple areas where we had some different perspectives. We'll share you those areas today, and we'll ask for your guidance and thoughts. So at tonight's meeting, again, we're asking for your approval of the presidential profile. Once you have approved it, it will be posted later this week, or hopefully, and then we begin recruiting in earnest. The committee will meet again in February to review all the applications and to identify semi-finalists for the board to interview. So I'd like to go through the presidential profile section by section, and note that I'm using numbers now, but after this meeting, those numbers will become bullet points so that we aren't prioritizing numbers. So with that, any other comments, Chair?
No, that's great. I think we could get
Okay.
started. Deborah, would you be able to share that with us? So we're gonna go ahead and start off with the description. You will also notice that we have the vision and mission at the top, which was something that the committee recommended, but we're in the about the college part. And
yeah, this also is where to talk a little bit about where the college is located. One area that there was some difference on is whether we would list Portland, given the negative publicity that Portland's received recently. My thinking is that from the outside across the country, it really helps to position, to show people where Eugene is located in relationship to Portland. They may know about the University of Oregon and others, but and also many of your candidates are interested in being close to a city. And so I would say that I would encourage you to continue to leave Portland in, but I did want to note that a couple of the people on the committee had some concerns. So did we want to take a straw vote on that now or wait till later?
so is there anybody who would like to take it out, or is there anybody who wants to discuss leaving it in? Angela, and then Austin.
I was raising my hand in response to, I would like to take it out. I recognize the value, but I also feel like Eugene, Springfield, we're sort of often like secondary to Portland. And I know that Portland is the bigger city, but I feel like we should sort of try to stand alone. I would hope that the next president would be somebody who's happy to be here and not simply here to be close to Portland.
Austin?
I was also in support of removing Portland. Maybe replacing it with Portland PDX International Airport, because I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of people want to be near a city is because of the access to an international airport. So potentially just rather than Portland, PDX International Airport as a, I don't know if the board would be supportive of that, but might be a good alternative.
Okay, is there any other thinking on this? I've heard 2 board members support removing it. We've got the suggestion of Portland PDX Airport. Is there anybody who is opposed to removing it? If I'm not hearing anything, then we might take a straw poll on this. Angela?
I think Mike is trying to raise his hand, but
okay,
I wanted
great.
to say that I'm not like, I don't feel especially strongly. I think it makes sense that we're positioning it sort of geographically. That's just my sort of opinion, but it's not an incredibly strong opinion.
Okay, thank you. And thanks for letting me know Mike was getting that hand up there. Mike?
I prefer to leave it in. I think it's an attraction, regardless of the publicity. I think most people would see being within 100 miles of a major city as being just far enough, but also just close enough to be an attraction.
Okay. I'm also supportive of leaving it in, though, as Angela stated, I don't have strong feelings either way. I do trust our consultants' thinking about wanting to orient people to where we are in the world. So does anybody else want to make a suggestion here? So I guess I will just ask if we go ahead and take a straw poll about I heard Angela say that she didn't have a strong opinion about it. She was okay with leaving it. I heard Austin say he would be okay with Portland PDX Airport, which kind of is the same as Portland. So I'd like to suggest we do a straw poll to leave it in. So if you're going to give me a thumbs up, I'm going to need a minute to scroll through since I have a document up. Okay. You might need to put those up a little bit higher. Okay. All right. So, and Austin, can you just give me a verbal? Austin? Okay, so I am going to say that I saw the majority of board members supportive of leaving it in. So we'll go ahead and leave it in. And we will approve any of the decisions that we discuss through straw polls when we get to the end. Deborah, could you just highlight that for me so I'm clear about the fact that we left it? Is there anything else in this section about the college that people would like to bring up for consideration? There wasn't anything else significant that came to us. I'd like to say that thing about Portland came up in the meeting. It also came as late feedback from an advisory committee person. There are lots of really great changes that were suggested in this section that came from the advisory committee that I feel like really made it more robust. So Mike, did you have something in this section? Okay. So I'm not seeing any hands, and I'm going to take that to mean, oh, Holly, did you have something in this section?
I just seen, I was going to ask if there was any mention of University of Oregon, but I see it. Thank you.
Great. I'd like.
I just wanted to say one thing to thank Austin about the airport. That is something that candidates do talk about a lot, and you wouldn't normally. I had never thought about that to the last couple searches, but that airport was important. So thank you, Austin, for mentioning that.
Okay, so let's go ahead and go on to the section about the community.
Again, this was a section that your committee really strengthened. And I have to say that I went a little over the top on the all the snowboarding and the sandboarding and things like that. And the committee said, no, we need to really talk about the food scene, galleries, art, dance, the culture. And I think that it's much stronger and reflects the community and you know what would attract a person to the Eugene area. So I thank you to the committee.
Does anybody have anything in this section about the community?
I think it's just a really nice job, as Jill said from the outright. It does a nice job of capturing an exciting view. You know, it makes us feel, you know, dynamic. It attracts folks who love the outdoors, who love culture, who love the food scene. You know, without getting too down into the weeds, it just presents us in a really nice light, which I think is what the intention is.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you, Steve. Anyone else? All right, not seeing any hands. I'm going to go on to challenges and opportunities. We do have that initial statement there.
And the challenges and opportunities is really a way of, in a positive way, candidates will read this and they'll say, okay, these are the areas that the college really sees a need to kind of strengthen or to continue to focus on. We try to say it in a positive way, like enrollment and our diversity, but they'll look at these and go, okay, these are some of the areas that if I have the skills or background in these areas, this is where I'm seeing a nice match.
Okay, and so if we could as Jill mentioned, these will become bullets, but if you could use the numbers this evening for discussion purposes, that'll be helpful. Angela?
I have a sort of general question, then I have a specific question. The general question is this list meant to be things that the president will do? These are expectations of the president?
Yeah, yes, and based on the challenges and opportunities facing them. So when we use words like collaborate or position, foster. So yes, this is what you would expect your president to focus on.
So in number 1, I love the aspiration of eliminating gaps in all of these areas, but I wonder, is it actually reasonable to ask an individual to eliminate all of those gaps, to fully eliminate them?
So I would say that this is what I think this is what the college is working on right now. And as you implement your diversity and equity and inclusion, is to eliminate those gaps. To me, it's aspirational, but it demonstrates that the college is serious about eliminating the gaps. And that's what you want your president to focus on.
What, was there any follow-up on that, Angela?
I don't think that I have any anything to say sort of specifically. I just feel a little bit uncertain that that's, as I said, I really appreciate the aspiration. I definitely think that that is what we are striving for. I'm concerned that it might cause candidates to say, well, I can't eliminate these gaps myself. So I
think this is what your candidates are expecting. The people the leaders that are looking to be presidents, they are working on this, and this is if they're serious about equity and inclusion, they need to be serious about this. And I don't think that they would be. I don't think you would discourage them from coming. I think that they would, a candidate who's really serious about equity and inclusion would say, it's very clear what the college expects of me.
Mike? And then Holly.
Yeah, I would just say that in my career, I applied for high-level administrative positions in higher education. I've served on a number of high-level search committees, and I just echo everything Jill said. This would not scare anybody away. They would expect to see this kind of language.
Thanks, Mike. Holly.
I appreciate that perspective, Mike. But going back to what Angela said, that is kind of harsh. I would prefer if it said to work towards eliminating barriers in this area. But yeah, that's kind of straightforward to put. That's a hard ask. I understand where it's coming from, and you all did a fabulous job on this document. So I appreciate the work that you all did to put this together. But yeah, that right there, eliminate gaps. That's a hard charge right there. I would like it if it was just a little reworded to say something like work towards eliminating gaps in. Or eliminating barriers or something. But so, yeah, I'm just piggybacking on what Angela said. I think a little wordsmithing could happen for that sentence right there. But as Mike said, he gets this, and he's seen this before. So I appreciate both comments. Thank you.
Mike, did you have another comment? All right, so sounding like we're happy with the commitment, and I think one of the things that the committee discussed, and which I know Jill has spent some time talking about, and people who've done work on recruiting diverse groups for searches, is like you want to make sure that this is not only communicating what the expectations are, but that people see themselves in the position. And so that's why I really like this statement. If we change it to works to eliminate gaps, I am fine with that. I don't think it changes the sentiment. And so if we made that change, I think that's a reasonable change. Is there anyone that is opposed to making that change that's recommended by our colleagues, our board colleagues? Okay, so let's go ahead. Up, Mike.
I'd just like to ask Jill if she thinks that weakens it, or, I mean, to me, it seems like a minor change.
Okay, it's fine. I think that it won't change much.
Thanks.
Okay. So, Deborah, can we just change that to works to eliminate? Okay, can we take a straw poll on that? For that change? Just looking for thumbs. Okay, can you hold them up a little bit higher for me? There we go. I got to scroll through. Okay, thank you. Austin, can you give me a verbal? Okay, thank you. All right, are there any other changes in this section for challenges and opportunities? Any comments that people would like to make?
Well, can we scroll down and see the rest of them? For me personally, it's fine. It's not meant to capture every last detail. It's meant to capture sort of big items that should be and largely are reflected in our strategic plan, even though we haven't finalized that yet. And my guess is that Jill and Marge both would say that this is common stuff that they would see on recruiting app materials for community colleges up and down the West Coast.
Anyone? Holly, go ahead.
I just once again want to say thank you, Jill, to you and the team for putting this together. This is awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Holly. Okay, so I'm not seeing any other hands for this section. Can we go on to ideal characteristics?
So I just wanted to say this section, I received probably, everyone had some ideas about this. So we've got a lot of input, a lot of similar themes. But let's see if, I think we captured most of them. So let's see what you think.
I would agree with Jill. This was a part of the process where the committee really provided a lot of feedback that made the document, I think, much stronger and really reflected what the public input was seeking. Mike?
So I realize that we are not going to be able to hire a Marge clone, but when I think of one of the keys to Marge's success, I think of words like energetic, resilient, and I can't even read my writing, positive. And I don't know if those are important enough to include in there, but I think that those have been characteristics that have really helped Marge to be successful as president here. And then the other, a totally different category is I don't think I saw the word integrity in there anywhere.
Oh,
So number
I missed it.
it was in
Oh,
there at one point.
I see it. Got it. Thank you, Joe. Thanks. Got it.
Yeah. Was it positive and resilience? Resilience or that?
Energetic, three words I had
Energetic.
were energetic, resilient, and positive. They're all kind of this, fall in the same category, I think.
So I will say that I think number 5 does capture some of that with a little bit of a different flavor, but strong, exceptional communicator and collaborator, demonstrates empathy, fosters strong relationships, develops shared priorities, and inspires trust and action. We could add something there about positive and resilient.
I'd be happy with that.
Okay. So maybe a leader who demonstrates. Do you have anything, Mike, that you want to say? You're good at that stuff. A leader who demonstrate someone who leads through positive thinking and is resilient.
I would be happy to just put the concept out there and let Jill play with the concept. And
Okay, we need to approve this tonight so we can move it forward.
Okay.
Do you have any ideas, Jill?
Well, how about number 6? Well, no, that's okay. Now I'm trying to think of some place we might put a resilient leader. Culture, and maybe even on 2.
How about what Deborah's writing right now?
Thanks, Deborah. A leader who is positive, energetic, and resilient.
Simple and straightforward.
Jill, I have a question, and maybe for Marge as well, because I think you two have probably read these kinds of things more frequently than perhaps the rest of us. For me, it reads a little a bit redundant, across what there's 14, I forget exactly, bullet points there, and there's a heavy emphasis on somebody who's good communicator, good listener, relationship builder. It gets, which is important. But I worry that it comes across as redundant. I wonder if we could say what we wanted in 8 or 9 bullet points instead of 14. And the more important question is it a turnoff to potential candidates to have a list as long and, at least in my view, redundant as this one is?
I don't think so. Because what will happen is, as they write it up, these are the candidates who feel like they're really good working internally with building trust with the community, and they'll be more attracted to this. What they're going to see is the general things that you talk about. And so as they write it up, you won't necessarily be 1, 2, 3, 4, but you're going to see examples about how the person is visible, how they've communicated, how they've really promoted a diverse and inclusive learning environment. There might be a couple extra, but I don't think that it's going to discourage them, because the themes, as they write it up, they're still going to take about a general, they'll approach it generally about how they would address this challenge.
All right. Well, I trust your judgment on that. The other question I had, there's one of those bullets in there. It's down below what we're looking at right now.
Could we finish up with number 5 before we move on to something else?
Mm-hmm.
I need to take a straw poll on what we just added to number 5. So if people are okay with a leader who is positive, energetic, and resilient, can I see a thumb, please? Okay, and just give me a second. I'm scrolling down. Austin, can you give me a verbal, please? Okay, that was all thumbs up. So Steve, which number did you want to look at?
Well, I don't see the number in front of me right now. Would you scroll down to the one that deals with the budget?
12, I think.
So, yeah, thank you. Number 12, astute financial manager and budgetary experience. So my concern here is that it beats around the bush. I think one of Marge's traits that we have really benefited from as an institution is her willingness to confront some difficult challenges and queue up some difficult decisions for the board in terms of potential program reviews and cuts and that kind of thing. Doesn't mean that that's what we don't want, somebody who's just coming in to slash, but somebody who understands what that process is all about and the pressures involved. And this doesn't quite say that to me.
Is there something you'd like to add?
I prefer not to be the one to wordsmith it. I prefer to queue up the discussion, and if there's support
Okay.
for it.
I
then
see
we
Rosie has some
have it.
thinking. Rosie?
I'm liking what Steve is addressing. I think what we're really looking for here is experience. And so maybe the words, the concept to have Jill or Deborah add to this number 12 is experience balancing complex budgets or budget demands or resources and program demands. But I think experience balancing, experience managing is what we're looking for.
Well, and my question to you, I guess, Jill, is a potential president going to read between the lines here and
Yeah.
say, oh, this is an institution that's going to need to queue up some tough decisions and potentially make some budget cuts. If that's there, then I'm satisfied. If it's not there, then I want it in there.
It's there by putting it in there. A lot of colleges wouldn't have this in here. By putting it in there, it says there's going to be some budget issues, and I would expect questions for them because you've got. I'm trying to think of how you could make it a little stronger, but whether it's an astute financial manager, an experienced, this is a person who's managed budgets and complex budgets. I think that I think a person who sees this is going to say, okay, I've got to look at finances. And, I wouldn't be surprised because most community colleges right now are facing budget enrollment and budget. If enrollment's down, they've got budget challenges.
We have Mike in the queue, followed by Rosie.
So first of all, I'm comfortable leaving it as is, but because I think that it does have the word experience in it. But if we do change it, I wonder about managing large, complex, and challenging budgets. Insert the word challenging.
Yeah, that could work.
Deborah, you want to put that in as a placeholder for now? Rosie?
Yeah, thanks. I pretty much, I think what my question was is any president recruitment process not going to have this kind of expectation in it? And Jill kind of answered that for my satisfaction.
Yeah,
Okay,
mine too.
great.
Mine too. If Jill's saying that it sticks out as is, they'll be able to read between the lines. That's what I want. That worked for me.
This one will make it clear. This
Yeah.
one makes it very clear.
Okay.
Yeah, and we had that conversation in the committee also. So I'm glad you brought it up, Steve. So can I get a straw poll on adding the word challenging and leaving the rest the same? Just looking for those thumbs, like how yours is nice and high up there. Great. Austin, you want to give me a verbal? I think. Okay, I think we're good. That was most of us. All right, so let's scroll down and see if we can get to the last few here. Are there any other in this section before we move on to minimum qualifications?
I would just like to acknowledge the student body president on the committee who 14, he had an excellent point about we want a president who listens and really gives weight to what we say. So I really want to acknowledge him and his contributions to the committee.
Okay, great. Thank you. Rosie.
Yeah, I wanted to comment about the email where one of our committee members raised a question about the advisability of saying we want community college experience. I really, really have a lot of respect for Sarah. And I think a community college is a totally different breed of cat from other higher education. And so I'm a little uncomfortable taking out the community college experience. I mean, I could be comfortable with community college experience preferred, I guess, if the board agrees with that. But
So let's go ahead and frame this conversation a little bit so other people know what Rosie's referring to. So
didn't we all get the email, Lisa?
I'm
pretty sure Deborah sent it. Deborah, did you not send it to the entire board?
It just went.
Yeah, it was just feedback from the committee to the committee about this process to get it to this point. So I didn't send it to everybody on the board, but it was just so it was just a comment to follow up on this process.
So everybody knows we worked on this for about 4 hours with the advisory committee. We took notes on all the feedback and Deborah and Jill integrated them and we sent it back to them again. We gave them until Sunday afternoon to provide additional feedback, which they did, and which we worked to incorporate. And then there were a few that came in a little bit late. This section was a section, I think Jill mentioned earlier, most of the time when there were ideas that came up, the committee was really in strong agreement. Let's add those things. People were really supportive and appreciative and encouraging of each other's thinking. This section was one that we had more conversation about, and whether or not to have community college experience as a minimum qualification. The majority of the committee supported having it as a minimum qualification. And there were 2 people on the committee who were wondering or questioning about whether or not we would have it as potentially preferred. Yeah. And so Jill, did you want to speak to that?
The minimum is important for you to look at. And I want to just start with number one. We've suggested, and the committee agreed, that a master's degree be minimum, that a doctorate be preferred. This is to recruit more candidates, a broader range of candidates, and you'll find that almost everyone will have a doctorate. And today, this is how we're getting more diverse candidates also. But the committee agreed with that. 3 to 5 years senior level administration in higher education. Now, if you notice that we've not said community college, but we said higher education, but we put community college experience as a minimum. I think we've written it in a way that it doesn't say I've got to have 20 years or 30 years, but it recognizes that in the community college that I think that we're unique. Our mission is very specific, and a candidate's having a community college experience, I believe, would be better candidates, stronger candidates for Lane. But that doesn't mean that they haven't had experience in higher ed. It doesn't say the amount of experience, but I would agree with what I think with the majority of the committee felt that community college experience should be a minimum. And then classroom teaching experience as a minimum also. We don't get into details about where or tenured faculty, but the importance of classroom teaching experience. So that, to me, that's how we came up with the minimums. We wanted to be, we wanted to throw a very broad net and to recruit as many candidates as we can. The committee's job will then be to reduce that number down to your semifinalists. But that's my thinking. Oh.
Okay, I have Mike in the queue, followed by Steve, and then Angela.
So if we have an underrepresented person who the most they can say about their experience with community colleges, I drove past one once. I would hate to eliminate them from the pool. Doesn't mean that they would be selected, but if they meet every other one of our qualifications, I would not want to eliminate them from the pool because they couldn't say they have community college experience. The second point that I wanted to raise is, do we need to call out JD as also a possible degree that would be acceptable as a minimum qualification?
I believe that's viewed as a doctorate.
Okay, good, thanks.
Steve?
Well, I hate having to be on the opposite side from my good friend Mike. However, here I am. I think community college experience is really important for a hire like this at the president. Somebody who really understands it is very different from a 4-year degree program or a college or university. Excuse me. The connections that a community college president is expected to make in the community itself, very different than what somebody at a university or a college would be thinking about. So, and the idea that we accept all students regardless of their academic preparation, et cetera, that orientation is very specific to community colleges. And I just think you want somebody who values that and who has been immersed in it for enough period of time so they can hit the ground running.
Angela?
I think I also have comments about the community college experience item, but my comment is it doesn't. So classroom teaching, clearly you're teaching, you're having a professional experience there. The community college experience line though doesn't necessarily. Is it implied that it's professional? Because I've attended 2 community colleges. I even graduated from one. Does that mean I have community college experience? I'm not sure how we're meant to interpret that.
It's generally meant for experience after you've left college. But in an application, a person might be able to make the case. I was a student, I was a work study student, I was student government president or something like that, and meet the minimums.
Holly?
So we would accept that.
Sorry about that, Angela. Jill, did you want to respond to that? She said, so we would accept that.
Depending on how it's written, and the committee would probably see it, and whether you'd probably meet the minimums for that piece.
Cool, thank you.
Holly? Oh no, I can't hear you, Holly. You want to try it again? I don't know what happens after we start. So do you want to call me and then I can put my phone on speaker, or do you want to try and leave and come back? Oh, you could call me and I could put my phone on speaker. Okay, do that. Holly actually got here early to make sure that she was working, her volume was working, and we even made sure it was loud enough. And now this is happening. So
that is crazy. Thank you, Lisa, for this. I want to go back to what Mike said, which is I drove by a community college. So does that mean I have experience? And so I paused when I looked at these minimum qualifications because I put myself in. I'm looking at this job description and, ooh, okay, yeah, I got that. And then I got to community college experience and I was thinking, I attended a community college, so does that mean I have experience? Or should it say community college work experience? So I'm just a little confused on that. So I'm actually going by what Angela commented on as well. Is it just community college experience? Like,
I think if you just attended.
I'm just a little confused. I paused there.
Sure.
When I read this.
So
Thanks, Lisa.
I think Jill is gonna give us a response to that, okay?
So the committee will look at it and we'll determine, but if a person said, I just attended a community college, I don't think that's going to make it. But when you attend a community college, so many work. I worked in this job. I was working in financial aid. I worked in the tutoring center. That you could make it, to me, my view is that you've got to have a little more than I just attended. And you need to make the case by, and so many of our students do work, and a lot will have had part-time, will have taught a class part-time. Trying to think of what else, but I'm thinking that I was in the tutoring center. I've been enough to know that they've had some work experience in the community college. It might have been a work study job, but that would meet it.
Thanks, Jill. So I have myself in the queue, and then I'm going to go to Steve. So I'm very supportive of the way that this is written. One reason is having worked with the advisory committee, and I think the majority of the advisory committee was supportive of this. And I do also trust Jill's feedback of having had a lot of experience with this. But I agree with Steve. Community colleges are very, very different from universities. And I do think we want somebody that has experience within community colleges, and that's really important. I also think the fourth piece of classroom teaching experience, in that, we have this academic mission, and I think about my own personal experience of working with superintendents who have had classroom or instructional experience, and the difference between their understanding of what it takes to achieve that instructional academic mission and vision. So I'm supportive of both the community college experience and the classroom teaching experience in the way that these are written. And I trust that people can apply, and we will look at what they'll go through the process similar to everyone else, with the committee looking at it and then the board looking at it. Steve?
Yeah, just based on the discussion about item number 3 there, community college experience, I think it needs a little more description, right? I've heard Jill say that based on her read of it, just having attended for a few years is inadequate, and but others have felt that might count or be allowable. Regardless, we don't want our committee who is scoring it to be unclear about what is accountable and what isn't. And so right now, based on the different interpretations, I think there needs to be some additional detail there so that it's very clear to folks who are doing the scoring.
Rosie, and then Jill, let me know if you have a suggestion for that.
I do have a suggestion for that. I think we should say community college administration or administrative experience, because I think that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about a community college teacher who's never had any supervisory responsibility or managerial responsibility. I think we're talking about an experienced senior level administrator.
I agree.
So I was thinking that 3 to 5 years of senior level experience in higher education is what the minimum is. But community college, I was thinking in terms of its work experience, that you've worked somewhere at a community college. And if you have worked as a teacher, or perhaps you worked in student services, you were an advisor, that can be a really good background experience to really understand students. If I worked in the tutoring center, it helps. I think that demonstrates that the individual really understands that we're here about trying to eliminate the gaps, and understand the variety of experiences and backgrounds of our students. So if you had work experience, I think that would narrow it to, I've had a job at the community college. And then you look at how they use that experience in their application, whether, you know, they attended, how it shaped their values and their answers to the questions.
I have Angela in the queue and then Mike.
I was just about to pipe up and say that I've decided that I quite like number 3 just as it is. I like it being a little bit more open-ended and offering candidates the opportunity to sort of make a case for themselves. So that's all.
Okay, thank you. And Mike?
So since I can't get anybody to buy into community college experience preferred, I think I agree with Angela. You know, I can think of a case where I actually did some consulting at a LCC while I was on my job. And if I could make a case to the committee that that was community college experience, good for me if I were an applicant. So I like leaving it more open-ended like it is.
I'd hire you, Mike.
And I agree with what Mike and Angela said. I like it more open-ended so that we can get a broader range of community college experience. And I believe that it also, it does have the 3 to 5 years of senior level administrative experience there, which is, I think, what Rosie's trying to get at. Mike, did you have another comment?
I'm sorry, no.
Okay. So I'm hearing, I feel like we're a little in the middle on this. I've heard 3 people support the community college experience, leaving it as it is. I've got Steve and Rosie who maybe wanted a few more words here. We could go ahead and take, you know, maybe do a more formal motion on this section and vote on it. Or we could just go ahead and try. So
I withdraw my concerns. I'll leave. I'm fine with it as is.
okay, thank you. So I think we're getting closer to almost a consensus here. So I'm, rather than take a formal poll, then I'm going to ask for a straw poll that we leave it as it is. So can I get a straw poll on that? We'll see where we're at. All right, thank you. I am liking the straw poll approach.
Good job.
So
Preferred.
Last section we have is preferred. Jill?
Okay, so we had 2 pieces there, and one was lived experience with marginalized communities. That was moved up to the qualifications section, or the it was moved up. The only thing that sits in this section is a preferred for to be bilingual. And I've been thinking about this, and I'm concerned. And the reason is that in the last few searches I've done, I've had very diverse finalists, 3 to 5 finalists, and almost none of them were bilingual. What I don't want to do is to discourage really some of our diverse candidates who may not be bilingual. And I think when you have it sitting alone there under preferred, it looks like it is really, it's preferred, but it's really important. So I'm just struggling with this a bit.
Steve? And then
Well,
Rosie.
I think I like the sentiment behind it, and so I certainly appreciate the suggestion, whoever's it was. But I also hear what Jill is saying, and I agree. It sticks out like a sore thumb there, and it, you know, by itself, by the way, it's a little odd, right? Because if we really wanted somebody who was bilingual, there would probably be a limited number of languages that would resonate with us, right? There's lots of languages around the world that we have no representation here locally, so that wouldn't be terribly helpful. But I agree. I think it forces or prioritizes a certain type of diversity above and beyond all other types, and that for me, it will severely, I think, reduce qualified candidate pool. I would prefer to pull this out.
Rosie?
I appreciate Jill's expertise in this area, and if she's discomfited by it and is concerned that it may have a dampening effect on our pool, I don't want it there.
Mike?
Well, I like leaving it in. It speaks to a commitment that we have, and it's more likely to communicate to an applicant that we think that's important. It's unfortunate that it stands alone, but I can't think of another preferred qualification to stick in there. But I don't think it's gonna, it does stick out, but I don't think it's gonna distract somebody, because experienced job hunters, and if you're searching as a president, you are an experienced job hunter, they know the difference between minimum and preferred, and they'll just take that into stride.
So one solution that was suggested is that we move this up into a characteristic area. I'll just throw that out there as an option if anybody wants to consider it. Angela?
I will say that I am an experienced job hunter, although not at a particularly high level, and I fully ignore the preferred qualifications personally. If I meet the minimum, if I meet 60% of the minimum, I'll apply.
Yeah.
I don't know how common that is at this level. So I like the idea of it. If Jill thinks that it will reduce our pool, I'm comfortable taking it out. But it's not clear to me that it would necessarily reduce the pool, but Jill is the expert and I'll defer.
Okay. Does anybody else want to speak to this? I'm just going to go ahead to Holly, go ahead. You want to call me? Okay. Sorry, friend. Do you want to try and leave and come back? Okay. So I've heard, I'm kind of wondering if we might, I appreciate Jill's expertise. I've heard 2 board members support, possibly 3 board members support not having it there. I'm wondering if there are a lot of places where we really emphasize equity and diversity in the characteristics. And I'm wondering if we might be able to include it someplace there so that we still have this referenced, and but then we could take it out of the preferred.
Could either 3 or 4.
I might make a suggestion that we say, we could just say bilingual experience or linguistic diversity preferred. Angela, did you have a thought?
I guess I'm a little concerned about putting it in characteristics because that feels more required than preferred.
Okay, totally hear that. Steve?
I guess I want to acknowledge sort of the values and the sentiment behind it, but I guess I just plainly don't think there is a place for that. If we were, I forget what the name is, an institution that's like primarily Hispanic serving or something like that, where 50, 40, 50, 60% of our students were of, let's just say, Hispanic origin. Doesn't have to be that. It could be French. It could be any number of things. There would be a clear preference for that. There would be a clear rationale for that, but I just don't see that here. I think the kinds of the kind of administrator we want in terms of, focusing, and the kind of person we want who can reach out to a wide diversity of folks, not a group that we would who has a particular second language or some other language besides English. I just don't see that as a dominant characteristic at Lane Community College.
Okay, so I'm going to take us back down to the bottom, and I'm going to straw poll at the direction that it seems like the board is leaning. So let's take a straw poll on removing bilingual and the preferred section here. So who's in support of that? Can I see a thumb, please? Okay. Right. And who is not in support of that? Okay. I have a sideways. I have a thumbs up. Okay. So we don't really have a clear decision on that. And so that would leave us with not making a change, or we could just take a straight up vote on it. So does anybody have a motion on this section?
Lisa, if it's clear that the board wants to take it out, I can live with that.
Okay. And I see that Angela kind of has a sideways thumb on it. Angela, can you live with it?
I put sideways thumb on both. I can live with either direction.
Okay, great. So I am hearing then that we can take it out. That was a great example of consensus decision making. Thank you, colleagues on the board. So that brings us to the end, and if we could just go ahead and go back to the top, and we'll slowly scroll down and review the changes that we have made. And then I'd like for a motion.
Chair,
Angela?
Could I just make a quick comment before?
Yes, absolutely.
In this section, there are a number of statistics and dollar figures and down the number of faculty and staff. And the only thing that something came up today that some of the numbers may not have been up to date. Okay. And so I would ask that whatever you approve, that you would allow us to go back and just double check those, what the budget is, the number of faculty and staff. And there's a couple in there, FTEs, enrollment, but not significant. So that would be the only request I'd make.
Great. Angela, did you have further feedback, or did you have a motion?
I had feedback.
Okay.
I have been continuing to think about the challenges and opportunities. Number one, the update we made to say work toward eliminating gaps, works to eliminate gaps in aspiration. I appreciate that it's a little bit softer than saying eliminate, but I feel like it could be a little bit more robust, like somewhere in between. Is that anyone else feeling that, or am I on a limb here?
I think either one is fine, and that the person is going to get the sentiment from the entire context. So I don't know if I want to go back, and I don't feel the need to change it. Is there anyone else who at this point would like to discuss changing that?
I'm not proposing changing it back to where it was. I was thinking something more like actively works to eliminate, or like has a plan to, I don't know, something just a little bit more robust, somewhere in the middle.
Mike?
I can live with.
I can't really speak to Angela's statement, but I did notice that there's an S at the end of work, and there's not an S at the end of foster, the next sentence. And it seems like those ought to be consistent.
Okay, so I heard Angela suggest adding the word actively work to eliminate gaps, and I would be happy to entertain that as a straw poll. I'm sorry, Angela, I misunderstood. I thought you wanted to take it back to the way it was. Can we get a straw poll on adding the word actively work to eliminate? Are people okay with that? Okay, I think we're good to go on that. So let's make that change there. And we'll just quickly go through and look at the changes that we've made, and then I'll be looking for a motion here. So we are leaving in 100 miles south of Portland. If we could keep scrolling down. We are changing eliminate to actively work to eliminate. We are adding a leader who is positive, energetic, and resilient. We are editing number 12 to add challenging budgets. And we are leaving the minimum qualifications as they were written and taking the preferred section out. So great work. Thank you. And
Lisa, I have a quick question maybe before.
yes. So I'm going to look for a motion, and then we can have discussion. And that can include questions. So Mike, did you have a motion to move us forward?
Go ahead, let somebody else make the motion.
Angela?
I move approval of the presidential profile with the flexibility for the committee to afterward update any statistics as needed.
I don't think you can do that. Once it's posted, once it's posted, it isn't really
Jill?
changed.
Jill, I think
Is that the question?
Angela was referencing the need for staff to just check the statistics.
Oh, I'm sorry. I misunderstood. I thought you meant after it's posted. My apology.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, great. Any discussion or questions? Steve?
Yeah, I was hoping to do this before the motion, but Marge, I just wanted to get your impressions of the document as a whole. You're our outgoing leader. You've had several years experience in the chair. Does anything stand out to you as, is anything egregiously missing or, any characterization? I just wanted to give you that opportunity.
Thank you. It looks like something that any applicant who was willing to take on their next challenge would love to sink their teeth in and prove to you that they can do this. And that's what you're looking for. You're looking for somebody that's going to go through. I think it's well built.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so any other discussion about the profile or questions? Okay, so seeing none, we have a motion on the table to accept the profile as edited by the board this evening. Donna, could you please take the roll, please? And of course, that motion includes making sure that the data and statistics are confirmed by staff before it's posted.
Okay, Holly Johnson,
Yes.
Angela Van Kraus,
Aye.
Mike Eister,
Aye.
Austin Folneggy.
I think.
Oh, okay, good. Steve Mattel,
Aye.
Rosie Pryor,
Aye.
Lisa Fragola.
Aye. Great, thank you. That passes unanimously. Jill, did you want to address next steps? And thank you for your support tonight.
Thank you, everyone, for your great input and your discussions. That was an excellent discussion. After everything is finalized, then it will be posted on the ACT website and on the Lane presidential profile or presidential search. And then we begin in earnest. We've been talking to people. We will start advertising. I'll be contacting individuals. I already have been talking to a number of folks who are interested. And my job gets really busy the next few months, and you probably won't see a lot of activity on the campus because it's outside the campus. But the end of January, then the committee will start reviewing the applications again, or 1st of February. And then their job is to get it down, the pool down to 8 to 10 for you to interview. So we're moving forward. Everything's going well. You've had a great team working on this. The committee has done its job. And tonight, I really demonstrates how the board works together. It's been really impressive to me to see how you looked at these. And these are important issues. So I think it looks good, and it'll work. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike.
So if we know people that we would like to encourage to apply, would you like us to send them the posting, send them a link, give them their name? How would you like us to handle that?
You can do anything, any of those. You could give them posting, but also give them my name and number. Okay. And I'm happy to talk with anybody that thinks they might be interested or wants to know more. So either I would do all of those, but send them my way.
We'll get a notice and a copy when it's finalized. Is that right, Lisa?
Yes, and we have a web page on the college website that is specifically dedicated to this. And so that might be the best place to send people, right, but thanks. I'm sure Deborah will keep us informed and up to date.
Well, thanks.
All right. Good work, everybody. Let's move on to our discussion item for the evening, which is a COVID vaccination compliance update. And we have Provost Gerald and I believe also Richard Platt to speak with us about that.
Yeah, right. Good evening, everybody, and thank you, Lisa. As you can tell from the background information that was placed in board docs, we are progressing along on getting all of the technologies in place for having students and employees be able to provide proof of meeting the requirements. And I'll let Richard comment on that specifically. With regard to students, we've been messaging students regularly to expect the ability to verify compliance, and have been messaging them probably weekly, and looking at messaging them now probably a couple times a week by multiple modalities to be able to make sure that the word is out as much as possible. So that's where we are there. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about that from the academic and student affairs side, and everybody else is here, and Richard's here. He can comment on the technology implementation, that process, and how that's progressing as well.
Richard, did you want to say anything before we went to questions from the board?
Yes, ma'am. Good evening. I'm Richard Plott. My pronouns are he, him, his. We are on task, on calendar to launch the product of the survey this Sunday. Emails to students and employees will be delivered Monday morning. The invitations also include an ability for those who are anonymous. They may perhaps not have an L number for a number of reasons, an opportunity for them to participate as well. Staffing is already in place to review the uploads, and so they can be verified smoothly, and then on to the ease of registration. We have a help desk available. We have chat, we have on call, we will have texting available. Translation is now functioning in Spanish. So the items that were promised for delivery earlier when the board expanded the survey practice have been made good on. We have stayed within budget, and I'm proud to say that everybody has been fantastic to work with, and this project is on calendar. We are very grateful for this.
Okay, any comments or questions from the board? See a thumbs up there. Okay, so I'm not, Steve, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm often first. I was trying to delay in case anybody else wanted to jump in. Thank you, Richard, I appreciate the update. So yeah, the 24th is Sunday. So as you said, you met the deadline. Can you just review Or is there any way that you can anticipate the what we expect to be the compliance rate for folks having been vaccinated and showing us their cards?
We expect 100% what the employees of the college, as previous when we were doing the first survey, we had we were on the way to 100%. With the students, we expect, personally, I expect 7 out of 10 based on the prior response rate. What we are going to be challenged with is uploading the exemptions and having them reviewed. They do require additional information, and so that's going to be a little bit longer to review each one of them. However, the training of the staff to do that is already underway. We will have updates daily on the vaccination page of our website with the number of submissions that have been made, reviewed, et cetera, the percent of the population of students and employees. So I do not anticipate any significant challenges in participation. I do anticipate some challenges, as with everything, and folks as they move forward in participating in the survey. Perhaps their document didn't upload or other features, but we do have specialists on hand to help them.
Follow up, what's the deadline by which we are expecting or requiring everybody, faculty, staff, student, to respond?
Yeah, sir, I believe that is 5 days. I want to defer to HR with Shane Turner if to make sure I've got that correct.
Yeah, employees have 5 days from the point of opening the form, 5 working days. And so obviously we'll have some people who are on leave or something like that will need to catch on the back end. But those first 5 days, my HR staff, about 4 of us, will be working through about 1,000 employees submissions. So.
Steve, same on the student side. We're looking at a November 1 deadline to submit that. The issue with the students, as Richard mentioned, is that, you know, I think it's a harder group to communicate with, although the focus will be on students that you know, need to comply, not all students in particular, but we will be looking at those students after November 1 that have an in-person component to their schedule and have not complied, and then we will be able to do very targeted outreach to those students as well. But we're looking at November 1.
My last question is, and what do we plan to do on November 2nd for those that haven't responded?
So from the student side, we'll be notifying all of the students. We will give them reminders that these have to be done. They will have holds that will be placed on their accounts. And again, continued review of whether or not they've become compliant. We'll be looking at instituting a progressive discipline model that's consistent with the Student Code of Conduct and the student rights to due process that are in there with regard to that. So we'll be treating it, and we've notified them that it'll be treated as a conduct issue and could result in discipline up to and including dismissal from the college if they're not compliant. Or, you know, of course, the remedy is that they remain, or they, you know, only enroll online. So.
Understood. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Good question, Steve. I was also thinking about some of those things. And I did have one final question, which is in the last meeting, in our last board meeting, I had asked about those students who are only taking classes online, which you both referred to, that if someone is not vaccinated, they still have access to education opportunities by enrolling online. And when I asked if they would not be able to come to campus, you also confirmed that. So I just wanted to make sure that we're also working to provide other services for students in addition to access to online classes, that there's access to online services as well.
Yeah, and if I could comment briefly, thank you for that, Lisa. Most of our services actually will continue to be delivered online, or I guess I should say virtual options. I think even moving post-pandemic, hopefully if we get to that point at some point in our lives, that I think that is something that will always exist. I mean, there's still always going to be students that want some in-person attention, but our lane support hub has really gotten a lot of use. If you haven't logged on to it, I really encourage you to do it. I've done it just to check in to see what it's like. And it really does provide a lot of services for students in that virtual environment. We've expanded most of our student services to be included in there as well.
Great, thank you. And I've seen the new yellow signs that have gone up around campus, and I thought you've done a good job with getting that information out visually as well. Any other questions or comments from the board? Steve, did you have another question? Okay, thank you.
Nope.
All right. Well, good luck with all that, and thank you for the work on it.
Hey, you're welcome.
So that brings us to the report section of our agenda. And so we have a report from the student government this evening. Jeremiah, welcome.
Sorry about that, I'm muted. All right. Good evening, members of the Board of Education, President Hamilton, and members of the gallery. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Jeremiah Vandergrift, and my pronouns are he, him, and his, and I'm the elected student body president for the current academic year. I will keep my report short today, as there have not been any significant changes within the student government since September's regular board meeting. We're currently working on setting up drop-in office hours for student government senators and hope to have Zoom office hours ready by next week. Additionally, in the coming weeks, we're also planning on working on filling some of the vacant student seats within the college's governance councils. And that would conclude my report. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jeremiah, and thank you for your work on the advisory committee for the presidential search.
Yeah, no problem. It's my pleasure.
Okay, so we have a report from LCCEF, Frankie Kokenor. I'm looking for Frankie here. Do we have someone else from LCCEF this evening? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go on to LCCEA, President Adrienne Mitchell, and if Frankie gets here, we'll go to her after. Adrienne?
Good evening, members of the board. I'm attending a volleyball game for my daughter right now. So it's senior night for the varsity volleyball team. So you'll have to excuse me for attending only by phone. But thank you for the opportunity to present to you during report time this evening. I'm going to be briefly providing some updates on statewide and local issues facing LCCEA, labor relations, and safety on campus. First, I'm very excited to report that faculty member Kate Sullivan was nominated by LCCEA and appointed by the Higher Education Coordinating Commission to serve as one of 2 community college faculty on the Transfer Council. This is a statewide transfer council that is going to be working on a system of common course numbering for lower division courses statewide. And so we're really looking forward to the work of this group and are very excited that Kate will be serving in this capacity. I'd also like to share appreciation for our committee members on the LCCEA Committee on Racial Equity and Social Justice, who met all year last year and at a summer retreat on their recommendations, some of which were shared with you this evening. And there will be forthcoming recommendations focused on recruitment and retention of BIPOC faculty. Regarding labor relations, I'm very happy to report that the College and Association have reached an agreement regarding reassignment time for faculty serving as chairs of shared governance councils and compensation for part-time faculty serving on councils. We appreciate the renewed commitment to shared governance at LCC. We're continuing to negotiate regarding the impacts of Senate Bill 551, which we anticipate will bring more than $500,000 per year in additional funding to LCC each year. And in addition, LCCEA and LCC are currently working to resolve a grievance because there were 8 fewer full-time faculty hired for fall than needed under the contract. Our full-time faculty FTE has fallen below 188, the lowest in the history of Lane Community College. At an institution of higher education with more than 1,000 employees, this is gravely out of balance. Impacts include canceled sections due to lack of faculty to teach, resulting in reduced enrollment and tuition revenue. Faculty working substantial overloads, with some more than 50% more in overloads. This is a tremendous sacrifice that the faculty members are making, a personal sacrifice. The compensation for overloads is less than the regular rate, and it is contributing to exhaustion and overwork in some of our areas. And faculty report that this is untenable. In addition, it's resulting in low morale among faculty at large. Regarding safety on campus, thank you again to the Board of Education, all of you, for your leadership in requiring vaccines on campus and ensuring that our working and learning conditions are as safe as possible. Faculty are very much looking forward to getting on campus and being in the classroom more with our students as soon as possible. And a huge thank you to everyone in IT and all the teams working on implementation of the vaccine requirement. We're looking forward to sorting out a few details that remain about implementing the vaccine documentation system, and look forward to collaborating with the administration and everyone working on this massive endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian, and tell Evelyn we're cheering her on. So let's go ahead and move on to our information reports. And before we go to any questions from board members about the information reports, I do see Wendy Jett is here with us from the foundation. Wendy, did you have something you wanted to share with the board tonight?
Oh, not specifically. My information report is there. I'm so happy to provide you guys with those monthly reports. I do hope you take a look at them. We're super excited for a great fall. It's our busiest season. So end of year giving, scholarship renewals, super excited to see what the outcome is for our giving at the end of this calendar year. So thank you all so much for your support. And if I can answer any questions, let me know.
Great. Thank you very much for being here, Wendy. Okay, any questions about information reports from board members? Mike.
Yeah, I had a question related to President Hamilton's report. She talked about a 10% decrease in our enrollment. And I'm assuming that's a 10% decrease over last year, but I'd like to know what last year's decrease was over the year before that, so that we can kind of look at what the decrease in enrollment is cumulatively over the last 2 years. And Richard, I don't know if you can make that number happen in your head or if you need time to look that up.
Well, I'll introduce it while Richard does his magic. Yeah, it's cumulative, Mike. It was 10% to last year, and I think he's going to tell us we're over 40% since COVID started. I saw a chart the other day, and it was painful. We've got a lot of catching up to do. The only thing I can tell you is we're not alone. Yeah. There's two of the tiny little colleges that have never closed. I think Treasure Valley, Tillamook, basically, you know, they're okay, but the rest of us, Portland, Mount Hood, Lynn Button, even down to Rogue, we're all in the double. We've been consistently in the cumulative double digits. So I've been listening to feedback from Mindy on our enrollment plan. So there's a lot of good things going on. We just got to get them back. And everyone's saying the same thing. Once those students come back on campus, we should. The thing is, Mike, we don't know, and all of the board, we don't know what the new normal in enrollment will be. And that's across the whole state. We don't know how many of these students are walking away or if they're going to come back. Richard, do you have any more exact numbers for us?
Yes, ma'am. In fall 17 and through fall 18, 19, we had leveled off at some 22,000 enrollments. Today, our enrollment is 15,943 for credit and 1827 for continuing education, which places us about a little over 1/3 of a decline over the past 5 years. A large extent of this is due to the COVID and the Delta variant. Colleges across Oregon that we have reached out to range anywhere from 6 to 10% down in enrollment, just as we are. So we are not unique in this situation. The HEC D4 fall report is now being filed. At the mid-November, I will have more precise numbers across the state, and we'll add that to the enrollment report as it becomes available. I'm happy for any questions.
Any additional questions?
Could I add?
Yes, please.
Yeah, just to Mike, to give you an idea of those enrollments, head count. Richard didn't mention head count. But we are about 32% down relative to fall 19, which was a pre-pandemic head count. We had started to level off, but our credit side head count is down about 33%, about a third compared to fall 2019.
Steve?
Well, just a quick comment about that, but my question was actually about one of the other informational items. Wow, right? You can't say, you can't underscore that strongly enough. 30% decline in over a 2.5, 3 year period is incredible, and it really probably needs to be one of the very tippity top priorities of our new president. And I recognize things are already in place to try and restore our numbers, and it's to some extent, large extent, but to some extent, beyond our control. But wow, I'm almost speechless, and that doesn't happen too often. The other thing I just wanted to shift their attention to is there was an informational report on redistricting. It sort of queued up a decision. It's not an action item tonight, so I'm just trying to get clear about when that decision gets made.
I can answer that. Because of the delay in the census data, everybody is behind this year. And I think we're all aware of the fact that the state redistricting happened much later, and everything kind of follows the state. So the county is now in the process of getting their redistricting done. They are scheduled to finish November 12th. Hopefully they'll have made a decision. And once the county is done, then we will be able to make some decisions about how we would like to proceed. There is also currently a legal challenge to the redistricting plan that was adopted by the state legislature. That should hopefully be decided in about 2 weeks. And
but those things don't affect us exactly, right? I think the decision that was being queued up is whether or not we just simply take the redistricting that that the county does, or whether we implement our own process. And if we implement our own process, we would want to give our staff maximum notice about that, because they have said it's a timely process for them to undertake. That is my understanding. That's a decision that we as a board have to make.
We do have to make a decision as a board. You are correct. And I was in the process of saying that our decision actually how we move forward will include the county being finished, and whether or not Lane County elections can finish the precinct lines based on the state finishing. So Lane County elections has repeatedly communicated that you wait for the county to finish, you wait for the state to finish the county, and then the smaller areas go. So we're still kind of waiting for updates on information. This was an update report, and hopefully by the next time we meet, we will have additional information, and we will have to make the decision that you described. Marge, did you want to add anything to that?
No, Brett couldn't be here tonight, but that's basically what he's expressed, that we just have to, it's like a domino. We have to let the state finish, the county finish, and then us. But we really wanted to make sure you understood all the players, so that if indeed you did want to go out on your own, you need to know this is a big lift. This is if we did this without just adopting. So as soon as we know more, we'll get back to you.
Angela?
Thank you. I have a newbie question. So it looks like the equal population among the 5 zones is the 77,900 number. And so the zones that have larger numbers right now need to be shrunk a little bit. Is that what's happening? And the ones that have smaller numbers need to be expanded a little bit so that everybody gets sort of back to that number. That's what's happening at the council, and then we can decide whether or not to accept that or draw our own lines to get those numbers.
Yep, you've got it.
Okay, thank you.
Totally got it. Any other questions about reports? All right, I'm going to move us on to board reports. And I did want to loop back around to a decision that we made at our previous board meeting where we voted to nominate Austin to run for the OSBA Legislative Committee. And we will have the opportunity to vote on that. Austin, did you want to say anything about that?
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent, great. Sorry, I've had a lot of technical difficulties tonight. Overall, I'm really excited about this opportunity. I've already started campaigning with other local school districts, and I really am looking forward to this legislative session and what the opportunities we have not only for higher education but through for our K through 12 partners. And I truly believe that I can make a difference in not only providing a voice for community colleges at this legislative committee, but also bringing my experience with education service districts and with just growing up in rural communities and in a rural school district and lifting up those voices, because that is very important, especially in our county. I really appreciate the board pushing forward a nomination. I'm really humbled by it. Thank you.
Thanks, Austin. I think that's exciting for you. So we also have the opportunity to vote for our OSBA regional board member, and that person is the person who's currently in that position is Linda Hamilton. Holly?
I'm sorry, I might be a little ahead of you, but I would like to nominate Linda Hamilton to continue in that role. Thank you.
Great. So she is on the ballot, and we could have a discussion about how we would like to approach that nomination at our next board meeting in November. We'll have the opportunity to vote on that. Mike?
My comment is sort of separate from who we nominate, but it seems that there was a time when we had some concerns about how much community colleges were being represented at OSBA. And I know you did, my sense was you did some behind the scenes work, Lisa, but it seems to me that we would want whoever we nominate to be aware that that's a concern of ours and that that's something that we would like to have their support on.
Great, thanks, Mike. There was an entire conversation that the whole OCCA board had with OSBA about that. And I do think there were some clarifications made as well as some progress that was made. But I agree with your sentiment, and I think Austin would be a great representative of community colleges on that legislative OSBA committee. So any other reports from the board? I have one that I would like to share. So I didn't know that we would have somebody from the Chinikawa program speaking with us tonight, but I received, oh, I can't with that background. Oh, there you go. I received in the mail a magazine from the program that they asked me to share with board members. This entire magazine is written in Chinukwawa, and it's beautiful. It's very professional. It's fun. It's engaging. And I wanted to share a letter from the sole instructor in the program that she wrote to me. I won't read it all. I'm just going to read a section of it. My name is Beth. I'm a part-time instructor at LCC and currently the only LCC instructor in our Chinukwawa language program. This year, our CW 203 students capped off their learning in the program by writing and editing a magazine in Chinukwawa, and I couldn't be prouder of them and their work. I wanted to share it with you and the board so you can see what you're supporting. Do you know what Chinukwawa is? It's a Creole language used by both indigenous people and settlers in past centuries. When reservations were formed with confederations of tribes, Chinukwawa became a community language. Now the Confederate tribes of Grand Ronde are revitalizing Chinukwawa, and they collaborate with LCC on this program. Lane is the only institution of higher ed that offers Chinukwawa for credit, and U of O accepts our classes for BA completion. It's a special program. A few years ago, a decision was reached to terminate the Chinukwawa program at LCC, but many people testified to the board who then reversed that decision. Were you there then? I was, though not as a teacher at that time, though I did learn CW at LCC, and I hope to be teaching future teachers. Since we moved our classes to Zoom during the pandemic, enrollment has been excellent and the program seems super healthy. The last two Chinukwawa student cohorts have been large, enthusiastic, intergenerational, and multicultural. It's been great. Still, we remember and appreciate your support during the leaner times in the past. And she did provide a translation for the table of contents for me. It's a beautiful magazine. I was really touched by the letter. I think it really demonstrates a manner in which when we look at programs at the college that I think using the equity lens and the focus on equity that we added to the mission is illustrated by investing in this program. But I also really was very interested in the fact that by providing this class online in a Zoom format, it has increased access significantly. And I think that's just a great reminder that, you know, out of the challenge of the pandemic have come some really great outcomes. And this type of instructional environment is going to be with us for a long time. So I am happy to share this with anybody who would like to see it. It is all in Chinukwawa. So are there any other board reports? Steve?
Well, thank you for what you just said. I really do appreciate that. It's not a board report, but I do have a question about something that happened earlier in the meeting. I'm not sure when the opportunity to address that would be, now or after any other board reports.
Okay. I think maybe I think feel free to ask now. Sure.
Well, it's a question perhaps for Marge and perhaps others. In any case, you know, at the very outset, we had this public testimony that included what sounded like a proposal from faculty, right? And I think 3 different faculty members, you know, read a piece of it, and we received a copy of it by email, or was included in some kind of report. I'm just a little unclear about process here. You know, is that it seems, I'll be honest, you know, on the one hand, I appreciate faculty letting us know what their concerns are, and on the other hand, it does seem a little strange to me to, you know, to be presented with what feels like a proposal that then goes unaddressed in any kind of way during the rest of the meeting. So I'm just wondering, how else might that proposal be moved through the administration? What is sort of the normal process by which the board would ultimately comment on that? Doesn't seem like the way it was presented tonight, honestly, is the most productive way for it to be moved forward. So this is partly for my own edification, but perhaps it might be useful for those folks who are, are sharing information in this way. I just want to make sure that that I understand, but they understand as well how best to move a proposal forward through the administration.
Marge?
Yeah. So yes, we do have a protocol. Usually you go through your dean, maybe your associate VP, and then Paul. And then there's budgeting, obviously, and there's policies and procedures. And then Paul brings it. He either deals with it directly or he brings it to cabinet if it needs institutional resources. And I think I'm going to go in a positive light and say that they're excited that I guess this group did this work and they want to let you know and be supportive as Paul works with them to go through that list. I know I took some notes. Ultimately, I need a copy of it. I haven't seen it either, Steve, but I think I'd like to think they worked hard and long on this and will certainly take it piece by piece and update you on where we are with it. So it'll go through Paul ultimately and the provost.
Well, I appreciate your approach. It just felt a little strange to me to receive a verbal proposal read by 3 people and then we don't say a word about it. I just wanted to let folks know that I heard it, and I assume that our administration is receiving it and reviewing it, and there would be an opportunity at some point, perhaps, but if the administration agreed with it, for the board to weigh in. But anyways, it just felt a little strange to me to leave it there on the table without any comment. So thank you.
Yeah, I'll request a copy of it. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. And actually, I really appreciate you bringing that up because we do have this board policy that says we don't respond to public comment and that we refer those issues to the president. But you were right. This is exactly the time during kind of board reports that this is the time that we can ask those kinds of things. So thank you for thinking about that because those were really important things that people were bringing up. Austin.
I just wanted to highlight a few things with OCCA, Oregon Community College Association. We have a new executive director, Morgan Cowling. She's our new executive director, and it was a really great interview process with all the candidates, and I'm really happy that we have a new executive director there. And another thing to kind of just be aware of, there was a bill that was passed in regards to mandatory reporting. For those who don't know, mandatory reporting is essentially that you report if you become aware of any elder or child abuse, that you report it to Department of Human Services or to the police. That is something that is going to be a requirement of all elected officials to become a mandatory reporters, come effective January 1st of 2022. There is training available, and there more information to come on that training for board members. So I just wanted to make kind of point that out to board members as we come closer to the end of the year here. And altogether, please read over some of the materials in the board docs for OCCA. There's some good stuff in there.
Thank you, Austin. Any other reports from board members? All right. So, Holly.
Sorry, I always throw my hand in there. I hope you all can hear me.
Yes, we can.
I just want to mention that KLCC is in the thick of all of their efforts to boost their membership. So everybody keep your ears open and keep your radio stations tuned in. Thank you.
Thanks, Holly. Any other board reports? Okay, so for our future meeting dates, we have our work session on November 3rd and our board meeting on November 17th for our future meeting dates. It's hard to believe we are looking at November already. I don't know about you all, but it just feels like it was summer yesterday and now we're almost getting to Thanksgiving. So those are our next meetings. So we do have an executive session following the adjournment of this meeting. I am going to guess that once you leave this meeting, you will find a link to that meeting in your LCC email that Donna will have sent you. So I am going to adjourn the October 20th LCC board meeting. Thank you all.
Thank you. Good night.
See you in the executive session if